Hey everybody, we're trying to redo this video because this is a video I have to make because this is one that I personally, from my own personal experiences in Army intelligence, can call bullshit on. This whole situation with Russia and what they're saying on the news is not how things have played out the last 20 years because I was literally in the military while they were pulling these tricks. What is going on, to break it down for you, is ever since the end of World War II, we had an agreement with the Warsaw Pact countries that Russia agreed not to expand communism past the Baltic states. Basically, it made the Baltic countries the border. NATO would not try to expand into Warsaw Pact territory, and Warsaw Pact countries would not try to expand into NATO territory. And it created a buffer zone using the Baltic state countries to separate the NATO armies from the Russian armies. Because the last thing you want is two armies nose to nose. That will guarantee a war every time. I don't care what will happen. You will have two fighters that end up bumping each other. You'll have, some sniper, losing his cool and pulling the trigger and shooting a soldier on the other side. The war is going to start, I'm going to tell you. And basically what's going on is, whenever the Soviet Union fell, basically NATO saw an opportunity. And they immediately started expanding, if you remember, into Kosovo and Albania and all that. And that's why we went to that war with Clinton's war, where we launched Tomahawk missiles and stopped the Serbians and all that. Well, they let us get away with that, okay? They gave us a pass on that, okay? And since then, those Albanian countries did join NATO. And Russia at the time was too weak and was dealing with other issues, so they could not, they protested, and they even supplied the Serbians with arms over it. But they stayed out of it. They were like, if that's what it costs for peace. And I'm telling you, that's literally like America allowing China to take over Mexico. I mean, it's insane. Like, we would never strategically allow it. And now that they gave us a pass on Kosovo, Albania, and those Albanian countries, now we're trying to do it in the Ukraine. And our propaganda campaign in the Ukraine has been so effective, and Russia's campaign has been so effective that like all demographics show that half of the Ukraine right now is completely NATO supported, and the other half of Ukraine completely believes in Russia and wants to join Russia. So you have a country right now where 50% of the population wants to join NATO and 50% of the population wants to join Russia. So this is what Biden and what we're trying to do. And we're basically strong-arming Russia, and we're going to lose. I'm going to tell you, Putin is not going to back down from this. He is not. And if you think that the Russians will not go to World War III over a principle of honor, then y'all apparently did not learn crap during the Cold War. Because there were several times where the only reason why we did not destroy each other was because of one spy literally saving the day. As a matter of fact, the 10 days in Kennedy's administration, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, that they said was like the closest the world ever got to being destroyed, the only reason why that war did not start is because Russia had a spy, one of their head spy masters in this country that we knew was a spy because he had previously he was the Russian agent that broke into the Manhattan Project. But come to find out, we knew he was a Russian spy, so we were feeding him disinformation. But he still got very famous as being the Russian spy that stole a bunch of American atomic secrets. Well, they also kept him in the United States at the Soviet embassy because, like most Soviet spies, even though they do good in foreign countries, they tend to get assassinated when they go back home. The Soviet Union had a long history of not trusting agents once they came back to the country, thinking that they were corrupted by the West. And this agent, being smart, he always made sure that he was stationed in foreign country embassies, like the United States. Well, when both sides were not negotiating, there was no communication going on between Russia and America. We had our navies propped up against Cuba waters and a Russian navy heading straight towards our navy, saying that if they cross the line, that we're going to attack and World War III is going to start. We literally had 2 airborne units over Cuba ready to jump out. It was the closest we ever came to war. The Russian embassy was literally burning their documents. Like that, we were going to war. There was no maybe about it. Both sides had decided we're going to war. And like I said, Kennedy remembers driving by the embassy on his way to the Soviet embassy on the way to the White House and seeing all the black smoke that was coated in red. And what that was all their paperwork that came on all their top secret stuff through their electronic machine that had this red tinted ink. And they knew then that they were burning all their top secret documents. And that you only do that when their war's about to start. And like I said, the only reason why that war did not happen is because Kennedy and his henchmen basically meet with this Soviet spy and tells him, dude, like, you got 48 hours to get to get this deal to Russia. And the deal they made was to pull our missiles out of Turkey, but not admit to it at first. And they pulled their missiles out of Cuba. And that's how it backed down. Hang on just a second. Okay, so back to it. So yeah, like World War III literally ended because of two spies on both sides of the country. And it has been a partnership between our spying agencies and the Russian spying agencies, believe it or not, who are bitter enemies, but have been the only reason why war has been averted several times, when the politicians just lost their damn mind. And so, like I said, point being, don't think that they won't go to war today, because they will. They're even in a stronger position than they were back then. And we're in a much weaker position economically. Basically, we're where the Soviets were, and they're where we were. We have completely flipped economical situations. You can thank your corrupt politicians for that, who have weakened this country to the point to where if we went to war with Russia, it would break us economically. You can look at any profile or any analysis. Our economy could not handle a war with Russia. There's no way. Even if it was not a land invasion, just with straight Navy and Air Force, which it wouldn't be. But anyway, so basically that's what's going on right now. Is America's basically pulling a Pope Urban. I don't know if you know how the Crusades started, but the Crusades started whenever the King of Constantinople, who was being attacked regularly, just asked the Roman Pope for reinforcements. Just a couple hundred troops to man his wall. Just protect the wall that stops the Muslims from going into Christendom, And the Pope takes the opportunity to call for a crusade, and next thing you know, this army shows up on the gates of Constantinople. And the Pope lied to the army, told them that Constantinople would have food and money for them whenever they got there. The guy that ran Constantinople didn't even know this army was coming. All of a sudden, he's got like 80,000 of basically all the prisoners, and because they empty out the prisons and stuff in the mental institutions, and it's basically people that thought they were going to hell that was trying to find a way to go to heaven. I'll put it like that to show you the caliber of soldier. And basically, he knew that the Pope was setting him up. The Pope wanted Constantinople destroyed for some arrogant reason, which was stupid as hell. And he basically couldn't be seen wanting to destroy Constantinople, so he set up this situation where this army of 80,000 troops or whatever that was starving to death would end up being forced to destroy Constantinople to stay fed. And the Constantinople king actually outsmarts the Pope and tells them of this other land that they could raid that has more food and all that. And then they could use the city as a fallback point for their supply lines. And so Constantinople was spared, and he basically directed the Christian army through Christian fervor and stuff like that to invade the Muslim lands of Acre and later Jerusalem. Because even though the Pope claimed that Jerusalem was the target, Constantinople was the real target. And the generals that led the armies knew this. And the king of Constantinople knew they knew this, which was why when the army got to the gates, he immediately closed the gates to the Christian army and said the only people that can enter the city are the leaders themselves. And it was a brilliant move because as long as they were inside his city and the army was on the outside, he effectively took these Christian leaders as very comfortable hostages. So if at any point the negotiations went bad and the Christian leaders of the army didn't agree with what the Constantinople king wanted, they knew they were going to be the first to die, pretty much. And it was a brilliant move by the Constantinople king. It really was. But it basically started the Crusades, and that's how the Crusades specifically got directed on the Muslim cities and all that, because up until that point, most Crusades were just Christians killing Christians. And basically that's how the Crusades, as far as you know, it goes. And that's basically what we're doing now, is that Ukraine just asked for some basic aid. You know, they just wanted help securing their borders, some food. And basically we have come in here and we have basically armed the country left and right and turned it into our own little personal altercation and war to the point to where Ukraine is like, hold up, dude, this is not what we want. You know what I mean? Like, we want to negotiate. We want to work something out with Russia, you know? And they have told us several times, and it's even been reported on our controlled news, that Ukraine several times has told the U.S. that they don't see the situation as the same as America, and that they don't think Putin's going to invade, and that we need to quit going on the news and telling everybody that Putin's going to invade and all this, because we're going to end up starting the damn war. And they're right. And Ukraine knows when it comes down to it, this is all about NATO expansion. That's all this is. This is NATO trying to move into Warsaw Pact territory, is all this is. So, I mean, I just figure you might want to actually know what's going on and why you and everybody you love and care about is probably fixing to die. Because if they keep pushing Putin, Putin will push the button. I'm telling you now. And Putin has some very sophisticated military equipment, because he knows that his military budget being a third of what we spend, because we spend like more than the next 10 countries combined on military, which is another very corrupt thing in this country that makes no sense. We spend 5 times more on our military than the next 5 countries below us, all of which are allies, and all of which have treaties with us to join us in a war if we ever go to a war. So what kind of fucking sense does that make? I mean, like, our military budget is 5 times larger than Russia, and Russia is 3 times our size as a country. That should just give you an idea. And Putin, knowing this, knowing he could never match us dollar for dollar right now, he concentrated all his money into 12. He basically pulled an Adolf Hitler is what he did. He concentrated all his research into specific technologies that he would, use as something that would dominate us in war, such as his new MiG-35, his surface-to-air missile system that literally kicked us out of Syria in 1 week, shot down every drone, every plane we had in less than a week. And this was their model before this new model that they got that's highly top secret and is only in the Russian armies. But S-800, I think it is the older model. They actually pretty much give to every one of our enemies so that the U.S. can't use our Air Force to bomb these countries. They sold these missiles to Iran, Pakistan, all those type of countries. And it's just Russia stopping NATO expansion. That's all it is, you know? So you can believe the news. They're sitting here making it trying to look like it's all Putin's fault, or you can look at it from his situation. He is not trying to have a foreign country take territory and control right on his border. Again, I would like to point out that that would be like China invading Mexico or Canada and us doing nothing about it. We would not allow it. We'd go to war. I mean, we went to war when they just put some missiles in Cuba, let alone actually took over a country. I mean, anyway, so that's the real deal. I was in Army intelligence when all these moves were being made. I've literally had to do the briefings on it where they wanted us to figure out what Russia's reaction was going to be to this. And I'm telling you, every analytical analysis that was done by Army intelligence points to the fact that Putin will match us move for move until he finds himself backed into a corner where he has no other option and he will attack. Because he has several factors actually encouraging him to start World War III right now. And that's the fact that his military, being predominantly Cold War equipment, is all breaking down. So he has this massive army that was built during the Soviet Union days that he either has to use quick or it's all going to just, fall to pieces and rot. So basically, he literally has to use like 65% of his military equipment now, or he's going to lose it. So he's going to be in a much less strategically secure situation 40 years from now. You know what I mean? So basically, strategically speaking, he would be smart to attack right now, as opposed to waiting any longer. So us sitting here pushing his buttons and doing what we're doing on TV is just idiotic. And these retarded politicians that seem to be dumber than kindergartners as far as foreign policy goes are going to get us killed. I mean, Russia had just built a nuclear missile that can bypass all of our nuclear missile security systems. And let me tell you why. Because up until recently, ballistic missile ranges only allowed for them to shoot a missile over the North Pole, basically coming in over Alaska and blowing us up from there. That's the reason why all of our nuclear detection, radar systems and all that are on the North Pole. None, not one radar station is on the South Pole. The only military installation that we have anywhere on the South Pole is McMurdo Air Force Base, which is very small, very isolated, and you can't even get flights into it most days because of the severe ice and stuff. So, there's literally only patches of time that they can even get supplies in, let alone launch an attack or try to be some missile detection system or something like that. Well, now Russia has ballistic missiles that have the range, the speed, and the technology to circle the Earth 3 times before it comes down and hits its target. So what that means is that now Putin can launch his nuclear missiles coming up from the South Pole where we have no protection. We have no radar systems. We have no early warning systems. We have nothing. Nothing at all. So something you might want to think about. And keep in mind also that Putin has been rebuilding his nuclear missile arsenal for years now, while ours were all built in 1965 and 1970 and had only an expiration date of 20 years. And we have had these same missiles in these silos for about 80 years now. And the military is not even sure if they'll even shoot if they push the buttons. So we're outmatched, people. I don't know if you realize this. We will lose. I mean, the best that the military analysis that I read, because like I said, the military plans for everything from invasions to alien landings, The battle reports I read basically said that the best America could hope for is a stalemate where they control the ground and we control the sea and the air. But there is no way at all that the American army would ever become large enough to successfully invade Russia from the ground. It's impossible. And I don't know if any of you have ever picked up a history book before, but any army that's ever tried was annihilated. And I'm not talking about defeated, I'm talking about annihilated. Killed to the last man. Napoleon went in with 480,000 troops, came out with less than 2,000. Adolf Hitler went in with 1.5 million. An entire German army, or 3 entire German armies. 1.5 million German troops. And he barely kept his offensive going longer than 6 months. And after the first winter, it was over. So, I'm just telling you people, you might want to, if there was ever a time where you might want to stand up to your politicians, it's now, because they're about to get you and everything you love killed. Because the Russians won't back down. I mean, it's just how it is.